Good afternoon to all of you. Good afternoon. In the Learner Education Series 3, which is after the completion of Learner Education Series 1 and 2. The Series 2 was continue more than the 6 months, where there was a lot of cases of different variety regarding the case of migraine, case belongs to a psychiatric case, and few others cases was presented and discussed. You can easily get the access of that cases or video in through my channel Dr. Ninja Advanced Homeopathy on the YouTube, so that you can able to understand how to solve the typical cases, the difficult cases, right? Now the most important here, the today's topic is something special. Why something special? Because it is the most misunderstood and most ignored topic. Because usually what we do, we ignore because when we are undergraduate student, from second, third, fourth, most of the people, including me, try to understand the miasm through the different books. For example, Stuart Close, Herbert Roberts, Kent. But it was difficult to apply and understand properly and apply into the case. That time we don't know, even after understanding this, what is the use of this miasm? How to apply this? The homeopathy is based on the principle of similia similibus curenter. That means similar symptoms देखो और remedy का से match करो. So we were in the fixed thought कि हमको symptoms को match करना है. तो patient के symptoms और mathematical के symptoms, that means totality of symptoms और mathematical के symptoms को match करना और remedy निकालना है. So we usually our approach is like that. Even in the post graduation, as far as my thing is concerned, I try to avoid to understand the miasm, because of there are the various reasons. Might be because we don't understand it properly scientifically, and we don't know how to apply the principles of miasm into the case, so that we can solve the gross pathological and incurable cases too. Or there could be in our mind that the miasm is not necessary. Miasm is not important to cure the case, to understand the case, or to manage the case homeopathically. Now, this is the session which reflect that how the miasm is the core of the homeopathy. Miasm is a core of homeopathy, because without miasm, we can't think or consider the homeopathy. This is according to the Hahnemannian thoughts. Who discovered the homeopathy, and everyone know why, though the Hahnemann was the allopath practicing allopathy, but he was not satisfied, and that he discovered the or rediscovered the homeopathy. And even after rediscovery of homeopathy, he was remain unsatisfied, because allopathy में भी cases recurrent आते थे, cure नहीं होता था, complete cure was not there, reappearance of same symptoms was there, or there is a disease goes into the deeper pathology, shifting the system and leads to a higher disease. And now with after invention of the homeopathy, which is the dynamic science, the things happen the same. So the honeymoon was not at ease. बराबर है अभी उस समय हम ये करते हैं यूजुअली व्हाट हैपेंस because here in the group there are the practitioners, there are the interns, there are the I think the even final year and third year student. So we have to understand that when we start the practice, after BHMS graduation or even after post graduation, मतलब मैंने जब स्टार्ट किया प्रैक्टिस आफ्टर डूइंग एमडी फ्रॉम द मोस्ट रेप्यूटेड कॉलेज दैट इज एमएल धवले पीजी इंस्टीट्यूट and felt that I am in the position that I can now treat the most of the disease or each and every disease. But when actually I started practice and see the gross pathology or the psychotic disease, rather the functional disease can treat well, easily, which has the no gross pathology, no morphological or no structural changes, but where the gross pathology is there or morphology getting changed or the chronic deep pathology get not able to cured completely or only I can give the partial relief to them. So why this? Even after doing BHMS or after MD, why this so? Even after doing the MD from the reputed college, and even that time there was a MIASM established, there was application, but I am in a thought ki it is not important to in the cases. That's why I always avoid to understand the MIASM. I always ignore the MIASM. Might be it is a difficult for me to understand the MIASM. But after starting the practice, when I seen the lot of cases are there which gets uncured, which I can give only a partial relief, then what is the use of this science? And I think every homeopath who started practice goes through this emotion, goes this thought process. Even if after BHMS or even if after the MD. Practicing the homeopathy is most important first, but after started the practice, they face the lot of difficulties. Because if you're not able to give the proper cure to the patient who is going to come frequently, माइट भी अगर आप आराम नहीं दे रहे हो परमानेंटली टेम्पररी दे रहे हो तो एक दो तीन बार पेशेंट आएगा बराबर है कि नहीं बट वेन इट इज मिसअंडरस्टूड इन द सोसाइटी दैट कि होम्योपैथी लोग क्यों लेते हैं क्योंकि ये रूट से निकालता है मतलब ये जड़ से बीमारी निकालता है द डिसीज हैज टू पेरिश फ्रॉम इट्स रूट right ki nahi disease has to remove from its root that's why the peoples are approach to homeopathic consultant or homeopathic physician now this is our duty to make justify the homeopathy right so just doing the symptom similarity or matching the symptoms at whatever level might be a mental level or physical level or particular level is not suffice to give the result in the gross pathological condition or even in the chronic deep diseases like a psychotic disease or psychosyphilitic diseases now through which I am trying to explain you or trying to understand the how the miasm practically and scientifically we can correlate the miasm to the modern pathology how we correlate the miasm into the advanced technology or advanced investigation and on the basis of that advanced investigation or advances in the sciences, how we take the advantage of that and leads to a proper cure to the gross pathological cases. बरोबर है? How to manage that gross pathological cases through the miasmatic understanding. So that's why every homeopath wants to treat the each and every cases, not single one as just a thing कि बा एक्यूटी सिर्फ मुझे ठीक करना है, क्रोनिक नहीं करना है. बराबर है कि नहीं? So even if in the acute the miasm is important. बराबर है कि नहीं? So how it is important and why we need to study? Because I felt that the miasm is very important after my MD and after practicing the homeopathy for 4 to 5 years when I don't get the desired result even after the post graduation. Then I seek the need of there is something lacking. So when I studied the miasm and apply it, the result will be much and much better. So that's why even if it is mentioned in the Praful Vijayakar sir's book, that is the miasm and assumption, the end of miasm. That means end of the misunderstanding of the miasm. End of the misunderstanding of the miasm. Misconception of miasm. Right? Through this book, Dr. Praful Vijayakar sir has very wonderfully trying to correlate the pathology, that is the modern pathology, modern advances or modern investigation to the modern understanding of the pathology to the homeopathic or Hahnemannian understanding of miasm. It is one step ahead what is given in the organon of medicine or in the chronic disease, because the Hahnemann has discovered the miasm 200 years back, that is around the 1828 or 1827, where that time there was no microscope, no investigation. The peoples or the doctors don't understand the disease by their microscopic pathology, by the proper investigation. And even that time, the Dr. Hahnemann developed the vision where that the things which was written in the chronic disease is still it is applicable. Still it is applicable. Still it is proved to be a correct even in this modern science, even in this 21st century. Now see the vision of the Hahnemann, how the foresight of the Hahnemann, how he forecast the things, कि उसके विजन कैसे होंगे, कि उन्होंने अभी तक जो हमारे एडवांसमेंट या पैथोलॉजिकल चेंजेस हम समझते हैं, उन्होंने उस तरह से उसको ढाला है माइसम को, उस तरह से क्रोनिक डिसीज में डिस्क्राइब किया है विदाउट द हेल्प ऑफ द माइक्रोस्कोप एंड मॉडर्न इन्वेस्टिगेशन. So how this happened or how this possible, let us see, try to understand it properly. Whatever the difficulty or any question if you face, you can ask at the last of the session. This is the miasm series, not a single session. It is a miasm series, but because it is not possible to explain the whole miasm scientifically in a one session, in a 1.5 hours. It requires at least 7 to 8 sessions. 2 sessions for the general understanding, 3 session for each miasm, psoriasis, psychosis, syphilis, and then their application, how to apply it in the disease wise, pathology wise, and in the mental symptoms. That require again 3 to 4 sessions. So don't miss it, because जब हम पिक्चर का बिगिनिंग मिस करते हैं तो आगे हमको समझता नहीं है ना, कनेक्ट नहीं कर पाते स्टोरी को. दैट्स व्हाई Every person who like to watch the movie always start the movie from the beginning, or always watch the movie from the beginning, not at the middle or at the end, right? So after discovery of the homeopathy, why miasm? Why miasm? This is the big question, because many of the homeopaths practice the homeopathy without understanding, without the application of miasm. तो अगेन द क्वेश्चन कम्स, तो वो भी तो प्रैक्टिस करते हैं, बराबर है कि नहीं? दैट इज द actual questions. But whether they are able to give the cure, whether they are able to treat the gross pathological condition, whether they are able to cure the autoimmune disease or the disease like a cancer. I don't mean here that I am giving result to everything. That is not, because I am a learner. I am still learning the homeopathy, learning the predictive homeopathy, learning the miasm, learning the classical homeopathy, and still even कि ये मैंने 2 से 3 सेशन लिए miasm पे, 2 साल पहले भी लिया है, 3 साल पहले भी लिया है, and still I get the lot of new information when I read the book, the miasmation. That's why the knowledge is never ending process, or the learning is a never ending process. We must be a learner throughout our life. And what I personal think, even this life is not sufficient to learn. One life is not sufficient to learn the homeopathy, right? So Hahnemann was severely unsatisfied because there was no real cure. So Hahnemannian era at the 1816 to 1828, though he rediscovered the homeopathy in 1796, lot before, he described in the chronic disease that during the year of 1816 to 1827, I have been employed day and night with very serious problem of finding out why all the medicine known to homeopathy bring about no real cure in the disease under discussion, and of securing a possible a clearer insight into the true state of those thousands of stricken ones who remain uncured in the face of unimpeachable truth of homeopathic system of healing. Lo, in this time, the giver of all good things offered me to solve this sublime riddle for mankind's good as a result of incessant thought, tireless investigation, accurate observation, and the most careful experiment. Now you can see the concern of Hahnemann. Even after rediscovery of homeopathy, he was not satisfied. So what he do? What he did that time? हनीमन ने होम्योपैथी नहीं छोड़ दी कि मैंने जो डिस्कवर्ड किया इज नॉट कंप्लीट, it is not complete, it is not a good science, so make it away. हनीमन ने ऐसा नहीं किया क्योंकि उसको होम्योपैथी पे विश्वास था, फेथ था कि दिस इज द कंप्लीट science, a dynamic science. It has the power to give the cure to the sufferer, not only a partial cure but complete cure. But there might be something missing which needs to be understand, and for that he study for a long 12 years, studied each and every case, studied lot of case. There was a incessant thought, tireless investigation with accurate observation and the most careful experiment. और हम अभी क्या करते हैं, इवन आफ्टर 200 years, हम जब देखते हैं कि मेडिसिन देते हैं और जब पेशेंट को आराम नहीं मिलता है तो हम सोचते हैं कि द होम्योपैथी डजंट वर्क, होम्योपैथी डजंट वर्क। ये बराबर नहीं है पैथी। People's or homeopathic doctors or student blame on homeopathic system of medicine. एक मजे की बात बताता हूँ। The interns who come to me for sign the cases belongs to our surgery department, because I am the HOD in the surgery department. When I asked to that fellow interns who is a doctor and now going to practice once there is a completion, so that is going to practice what system is going to practice, whether allopathy or homeopathy, or where you are going to practice. So he said, I'm going to practice in my village. That's a good thing. But what? Allopathy or homeopathy? Sir, homeopathy कुठं करणार? Homeopathy काम करते का? Now the interns who learn the BHMS, whole course of BHMS 5.5 years, learns each and every subject, learns organ and learns matra medica, learns philosophy, and after 5 years he concluded that the homeopathy doesn't work. This is the actuality in the homeopathic college. This is the very disappointing, that the person or the student or the interns doesn't able to understand his own pathy, for which he dedicated the 5 years of his own life. This is severely disappointing. Even if you don't want to give the homeopathy, try to see the other homeopath who are practicing, who are giving the good result, who are presenting the case and giving the justice to homeopathy. And even I advise to my students, even at the third year, final year, even from the third year, ki start to give the medicine to the patient, even if you are not fully or legally doctor. Try to give a medicine to other peoples at a trivial causes or trivial elements, not a big elements like a hypertension or diabetes or more arthritis, like a sardi khasi ke liye aap do. If you get the patient in your surrounding, in your family, even if don't want to give to the family, क्योंकि फैमिली पूछते नहीं है, दिस इज द वेरी कॉमन सिनेरियो। फैमिली आपको नहीं पूछेंगे सेकंड ईयर, थर्ड ईयर, इवन फाइनल ईयर में कि मेडिसिन दो, मोस्ट ऑफ द टाइम। तो अगर आजू बाजू में मिलते हैं, अगर पूछे और आप दे रहे हैं तो दैट इज द वेल एंड गुड। तो आजू बाजू में जब भी मिलते हैं, या आप हॉस्टल में रहते हैं वहां देखिए, कहाँ रूम करके रहते हैं वहां देखिए, अगर पेशेंट मिलता है तो ट्राई टू गिव द मेडिसिन एंड ट्राई टू सी द रिजल्ट, बट बाय द प्रॉपर वे, नॉट जस्ट कि मुझे देना है करके। बिकॉज दिस बूस्ट द कॉन्फिडेंस, दिस बूस्ट द कॉन्फिडेंस। पहले तो ये इंपॉर्टेंट है कि होम्योपैथी काम करती है कि नहीं, ये इस पे विश्वास हो। सेकंड इज द होम्योपैथी कैसे प्रैक्टिस करना। फिर एक ड्रग्स देना है, मल्टीपल ड्रग्स देना है, फिर मेंटल सिम्टम्स पे देना है, फिजिकल सिम्टम्स पे देना है, पूरे टोटलिटी पे देना है, फिर माइजम यूज करना है कि नहीं करना है, देन दिस कम लास्ट। Most important is to prescribe the remedy. You can prescribe anyway at the initial day, right? This gives the immense confidence. This boosts your immense confidence. Don't think कि मैं एकदम इंटर्नशिप के बाद जब सब अंडर प्रैक्टिस करूंगी 2-4 साल और फिर पेशेंट को मेडिसिन देना ये करूंगी। दिस गिव्स द इंसाइट टू यू वेदर इट इज नॉट एक्टेड। अगर एक्ट नहीं किया तो क्यों नहीं एक्ट किया, देन You may ask the question to yourself. Right? So the problem question comes 200 years back in the mind of Dr. Samuel Hahnemann, जो आज भी लोगों के माइंड में आता है. मतलब 2 साल में ज्यादा क्यों नहीं बदला? So why miasm? So one can see in the last paragraph that the concern of Hahnemann and the worries which he faced around 1816 and 17. He mentioned that कि होम्योपैथी से रियल क्योर नहीं हो रहा है. In the serious problem, not a functional problem, in a serious problem. And this is despite the fact that he believed in the indisputable fact or the unimpeachable truth of homeopathic system. मतलब उसका बिलीफ कुछ टूटा नहीं. वो बिलीफ तो स्ट्रांग था कि होम्योपैथी इज अ गुड सिस्टम ऑफ हीलिंग, गुड सिस्टम ऑफ साइंस ऑफ हीलिंग. But there is some missing cornerstone that needs to be searched. Right? The Hahnemann observed that the treatment of many chronic disease, even when carried out strictly, मतलब केस टेकिंग कर रहा हूँ प्रॉपर, पेशेंट को समझ रहा हूँ सोशली, पर्सनली, इंटर रिलेशनशिप देख रहा हूँ, आईपीआर समझ रहा हूँ, क्रेविंग एवर्शन सब देख रहा हूँ. राइट? In accordance with the theory of homeopathic science as hitherto practiced, was encouraging in the beginning. Means शुरुआत में तो रिजल्ट आ रहा है, पेशेंट बोल रहा है कि हाँ सर अच्छा लग रहा है, बट लेस फेवरेबल इन द कंटिन्यूएशन. पर जैसे पेशेंट आता है 2 महीने, 3 महीने, 4 महीने, फिर से वही सिम्टम्स लेके आ रहा है, बार बार लेके आ रहा है, एंड होपलेस एट द एंड. एंड एट द एंड we term it as, or we conclude that this disease is not going to cure. This is still uncure. And the patient coming to you at the regular interval of the same symptoms. Most of us even today not facing the same serious problem that Hahnemann, the founder, faced 200 years ago. This is the big question that we have to answer, we have to resolve. Then what is the difference between us and him? Despite the Hahnemann has given the solution. See, उनको क्वेश्चन आया, उन्होंने उसका सॉल्यूशन भी निकाले, and then he come to the conclusion now the homeopathy is complete. But हम आज भी 200 साल बाद हम उसको नहीं समझ पा रहे. That is the thing. बराबर है कि नहीं? सॉल्यूशन तो दिया है ना हनीमन ने 200 साल पहले, पर उस सॉल्यूशन को हम यूज नहीं कर पा रहे, हम समझ नहीं कर पा रहे. अगर समझ भी रहे तो गलत समझ रहे हैं, उसको गलत तरीके से अप्लाई कर रहे. राइट? द रिएक्शन ऑफ ग्रेट हनीमन टू दैट सिचुएशन वाज कंप्लीटली डिफरेंट. अभी क्या होता है कि अगर हमको रिजल्ट नहीं मिला या पेशेंट बार बार आ रहा है तो हम डिसअपॉइंट होते हैं. तो मोस्ट ऑफ द पीपल स्टॉप, goes into the frustration. Most of the beginners who are practicing the homeopathy get frustrated and stop practicing homeopathy. Nowadays, I can see most of the people start the job, day and night job in the allopathic hospital, because there they get the fixed amount of 20,000, 30,000 like that. But when you practice homeopathy, तो जो भाड़ा रहता है, जो रेंटल रहता है मंथली, इवन वही sometimes not able to pay that rental. But that doesn't mean that things are getting end. Don't lose the hope. If you are sincere in your work, if you are doing your work diligently, conscientiously, then the things gets better definitely. Only things has to do is you have to be constantly and persistently study this dynamic science, this science of homeopathy. If you feel whatever I learn in the BHMS is suffice to practice and suffice to earn a lot of money, then it is the wrong conviction. Every medical science need the update and constant study, right? So that time the Hahnemann took it as a challenge. और why? ऐसे क्यों? So in that dilemma of 1816 to 1828, he worked for 12 साल उन्होंने उस चीज पे काम किया कि why there is a no result or complete cure. 12 साल. How was the patience कितना था और विश्वास कितना था पैथी पे. और वो तो नई पैथी थी, तब तो कुछ भी नहीं था. एंड देयर वाज अ लॉट ऑफ क्रिटिसिज्म, लॉट ऑफ रेडिकल. अभी तो नहीं करता इतना क्रिटिसिज्म, लोगों ने भी एक्सेप्ट किया है. नंबर ऑफ पेशेंट्स एंड सेकंड ग्लोबली अगर हम देखेंगे तो होम्योपैथी का सेकंड रैंक आता है in dispensary, or in the peoples are using the homeopathic medicine. Now the peoples, all types of peoples, even in the village, even in the city, aware and using the homeopathic medicine, and still we are disappointed. In a letter to Dr. Friedrich Golthelf Baumgastner, Hahnemann write in the year of 1820. That means after 4 years of starting their research or starting their study in the homeopathic writing. It is I am trying to write here. I written as it is, which is mentioned in the chronic disease. You try to understand it carefully. In the homeopathic writing, as yet published, there is a still lacking the great keystone. There is still lacking the great keystone which binds together all that has been thus far published, so that we may be able to improve the treatment of chronic disease and the effect of complete cure. He further says, I have striven night and day for the last 4 years to discover the missing keystone to stamp out all chronic disease. 4 साल से सतत गहन अभ्यास स्टडी शुरू है कि वो जो मिसिंग कीस्टोन है दैट आई हैव टू फाइंड, और उसको मैं ढूंढ के ही निकालूंगा. सी द persistency and the belief towards the system. The Hahnemann himself acknowledged that the discovery of homeopathy and its principle was not so great. मतलब मैंने जो होम्योपैथी का डिस्कवरी किया वो कोई ग्रेट डिस्कवरी नहीं है. Since all that he had discovered about it was useless and incomplete. क्योंकि वो जो डिस्कवरी वो नहीं है, वो इनकम्प्लीट है और यूजलेस है. बिकॉज जो मुझे चाहिए था वो नहीं मिला अभी तक. डॉक्टर हनीमन ग्रेटेस्ट डिस्कवरी ही कंसीड इज द डिस्कवरी ऑफ मिसिंग स्टोन और की स्टोन, द डिस्कवरी ऑफ माइजम एज द बेस ऑफ क्रोनिक डिसीज और क्रोनिक मैलेडी. वो किसको डिस्कवरी बोल रहे हैं? ही कॉल्ड द डिस्कवरी ऑफ मिसिंग स्टोन एज अ माइजम. And without the theory of miasm, homeopathy remains defective or imperfect. This is the words written in chronic disease by Dr. Samuel Hahnemann at that time. Without the miasm theory, homeopathy remains the defective and imperfect. Agar wo Hahnemann that time has written like this, see the power of miasm, see the importance of miasm, how they understand that the miasm is the very core, very this is the core of homeopathy, which needs to be understand in order to cure the disease or in order to complete this science of homeopathy. From frequent observation, Hahnemann had discovered almost all the chronic diseases had come from outbreak of each. उन्होंने जो सतत गहरा अपना स्टडी किया उससे कुछ तर्क उन्होंने निकाले कि मोस्ट ऑफ द डिसीज इज कम्स फ्रॉम द स्किन डिसीजेस लाइक इच. मोस्ट ऑफ द, नॉट एवरी, मोस्ट ऑफ द डिसीजेस. नाउ एट द टाइम पास हनीमन वाज मोर एंड मोर कन्विंस. जैसे वो गहन अध्ययन करने लगे, मोर डीपली स्टडी करने लगे ईच एंड एवरी केस, His observation explains that the most diverse disease condition of human body originates from, that is, most of the disease of the human body originates from the itch, the warts, to tumor, to curvature of bones. In short, the thousand of various pathological manifestation observed in the human being and with different name affordable by modern science were in fact having their roots in few starting diseases. मतलब जितने भी डिसीजेस नेम किए हैं लॉन्ग टर्म डिसीजेस, उसका जो ओरिजिन है, दैट ओरिजिन इज विद द ईच, but all could not be related to it. So his greatest discovery is the discovery of miasm, and he declared it at his greatest discovery, without which even discovery of science of homeopathy was incomplete. See how he narrated at that time, right? After being convinced that all chronic ailments expressed by the patient has their roots in a deeper lying original evil, they concluded that the original evil sort must be of miasmatic. So the all the evil who is responsible to produce the chronic diseases must be of miasmatic, that is chronic nature or miasmatic in nature, as was perfectly evident that once it had developed, it could not be eradicated even by the robust constitution. If this chronic disease comes in the person, human being, तो आप वो कितना भी robust constitution हो, strong constitution हो, he is not able to eradicate that taint or miasm. Even after healthiest diet nor healthy order of the life. In fact, it grew worse by addition of more serious symptom right up to the end of life. In fact, कि वो miasm जो chronicity है वो worse होते जाएंगी and ultimately the patient land up into the death. Ultimately, the patient land up into the death. मतलब ये ऐसा डिसीज है, ये ऐसा मेलेडी है, ये ऐसा माइसमेटिक टेंट है कि जो रोबस्ट कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन या डाइट के चेंजेस से या लाइफस्टाइल के चेंजेस से नहीं जा सकता. वी नीड अ डिफरेंट थिंग टू इरेडिकेट दैट. सो व्हाट इज द माइजम, है ना, माइजम दिस इज द डेफिनेशन यूजुअली रिटन इन द बुक, है ना, कि माइजम क्या है करके, है ना. पोल्यूशन, मलेरियल पॉइजन, dynamic disease producing power which pollute the human organism and become the producer of every possible disease condition, every condition or every disease. It is a dynamic disease producing power which pollute the human organism and become the producer of every disease condition, right? जैसे we know in the first half of the 19th century, when he discovered the homeopathy, when he discovered the miasm, that time there was no electron microscope, no advanced investigation was available, no advances in the field of pathology, no advances in the field of immunology, in the biochemistry, molecular biology and genetics तो काफी दूर की बात. He had to work to find the root of chronic disease only empirically, experimentally, and logically without the help of this advanced instrument. Now we have this advanced instrument and investigation. We should know in a fraction of minute or short time by endoscopy की stomach में क्या है, MRI से, CT स्कैन से, पेट स्कैन से कि कैंसर है तो कहाँ पे है, कैसी ग्रोथ है, स्प्रेड हो रहा है क्या, मेटास्टेसिस कहाँ हो रहा है. All these things which we now gets available is not there 200 years back. But still हनीमन की दूरदृष्टि देखो, फोरसाइट देखो कि उन्होंने empirically and experimentally, logically, they derived some concept है ना, जो हम आगे देखेंगे. He was able to state that the incurable chronic malady owed its origin only three basic start. Three basics point are there where this malady get maybe start. Either each or venereal warts or chancre. Each warts or chancre, that is the ulcer. Venereal warts, they are sexually transmitted warts. And he concluded that in chronic disease, all the chronic ailments owing to their origin to a certain skin disease or expression had fundamental origin firmly established as a chronic miasm. This all the disease has the fundamental origin in the chronic miasm. And he also ruled the fact that science was not advanced enough to provide an explanation of his theory of chronic disease. See, what the thinking power that man has had possessed. कि उन्होंने ये तक कह दिया है कि मैंने जो थ्योरी बनाया है, इन्वेंट किया है, ये आज लोग नहीं समझ सकते, उनके पास कुछ इंस्ट्रूमेंट नहीं है, बट ये आगे समझेगा, फ्यूचर में समझेंगे लोग. सो इट इज द theory of future. This chronic disease is the theory of future, not a theory of that time only. The science was not advanced enough to provide an explanation of his theory of chronic disease that time, right? So he his experiment and lot of study, whatever the study has gone through, whatever to the each and every cases, lot of cases he studied and come to the certain conclusion that there are the three visible local diseases which can be the mother of three group of chronic disease occurring in the later in the life. That is group of disease which followed the initial symptom on the skin, that is the itching or itch, or the group of disease followed the treatment of symptom on the skin, that is the venereal disease, and the group of disease which followed initial symptom on the skin, that is the chancre, ulcer on the genitals. So he come to the conclusion of these three parameters that after studying the lot of cases, right? After having determined the root cause of chronic disease and after naming them as a pollution or miasm, the question is that pollution or miasm, the next question was the name of the miasm. Abhi he decided, he invented that he invented that ki there is a pollution, there is a dynamic disease producing power which is called as the miasm. बट ये कैसे है, कौन से प्रकार के माइजम है, इसको कैसे नाम दिया जाए. That time he published the book in 1828 as a chronic disease. And when he published the book and written कि there is a dynamic disease producing power, ये miasm है, ये सब है, this is the responsible to produce the chronic disease. No one accept this theory. Despite all, this theory goes into the criticism, this theory goes into the ridicule by the friends, by the medical fraternity. And see, even after this lot of criticism, the theory comes published for, and the homeopath use it for the betterment of the human being. That means whatever the truth was there is finally comes in the limelight. Even the see the doubts and insecurity in the Hahnemann at that time कि मैंने तो ये theory निकाला है, but might be Dr. Hahnemann predicted that time his teaching will not be followed sincerely by his followers. This would not be understood by many because of the lack of scientific proof. Because the theory what as I invented as a miasmatic theory has lacking the miasmatic proof Might be my followers are not properly understood or getting misunderstood. Hence, he wrote in the preface of the chronic disease in the 1828. See the preface, what is written in the chronic disease. Try to understand it. But in the small part of it I has taken. But in communicating to the world his great discovery, I am sorry that I must doubt. I must doubt whether my contemporaries will comprehend the logical sequence of this teaching of mine and will follow them carefully and gain thereby the infinite benefits. The Hahnemann has doubt whether this theory that my followers get the infinite benefits from this, because the Hahnemann know this theory, this complete theory of miasm has the lot of potential, has the infinite chances to contribute to the human being, to contribute to the cure of all the diseases, thereby infinite benefit for the suffering of humanity, which must inevitably spring from faithful and accurate observation of the same, or whether frightened away by the unheard of nature of many of these disclosure, they will not rather leave them untried and uninitiated, and therefore unless unless they use it, they understood it, they understand it properly, they apply it properly, how they know what is the power of this theory? May they do better. There may be a hopefulness at the mind of in the mind of Hahnemann. May they do better with the great discovery. That is the chronic theory of chronic disease. That is the doctrine of miasm presented to them. May be possible that they use it at the almost all way, and it is beneficial for the suffering human being. So doubt and sense of insecurity were accompanied by hopefulness that these things will do the better, or the my followers will do the better, will take care of this theory, and this must be a helpful for them. We cannot we cannot we cannot let him down. We as a homeopath have to complete the work he has left. We as a homeopath have to complete the work he has left in now see the homeopath. So Dr. Samuel Hahnemann has done their work 200 years back by inventing all these things. But as the century comes, 19th century, 20th century, now 21st century, and there is an advancement of pathology, advancement of science, we have to correlate and we have to complete the incomplete work. Whatever the things that has accomplished or invented by the Hahnemann, that is absolutely right, but we have to add further as the science get progress, and to add to it or to provide scientific explanation for the same. It is we who have to vindicate him in terms of modern advances in the science. So now this Dr. Praful Vijaykar sir getting the thoughts, this is our duty to complete, to go further with that theory of miasm and correlate it with the advanced science, the advanced pathology, and to understand it with the genetics and embryology, right? Now, even the organ medicine to study the physical body, to study disease pathology in human being, to understand the miasm, right? So Hahnemann himself advocated that the organ of medicine to study the physical body. बराबर. In order to understand the miasm, we must study the physical body to study the disease pathology in human being to understand the miasm. To understand the miasm, what he advocate in the organ of medicine, to understand the miasm, we have to understand the disease and the disease pathology. Then only we can understand the miasm. We will try to understand what the body wants to express in the form of physical discomfort when it suffers from various diseases. So it is essential for us to understand the pathological manifestation of disease. It is essential for us to understand the pathological manifestation of disease, which as we know is the because of some deep-seated unseen dyscrasias within the body itself. Now, whatever the pathological manifestation of disease is because of some internal dyscrasia, that is the miasm, which we have to evaluate. But whatever the expression or manifestation of the disease in the form of pathology, in the term of symptoms and sign, that we have to understand, we have to study in order to understand the miasm. Right? So the cell which makes up a tissue to form an organ. How we connect the body to the mind, the materialistic body to the immaterialistic mind. Now, up till this, we understood, we see the discovery of Dr. Samuel Hahnemann, as mentioned in chronic disease, how they proceed, and up till what they discovered the thing. Now we are trying to correlate that discovery to the advanced pathology. Now, how we can correlate that, we needs to understand. So the basic unit of life is the cell. The basic unit of the life is the cell, which makes the tissue. Cell, group of cell makes the tissue, and group of tissue form an organ. And ultimately this organ building block a man, and or ultimately the organ forms the system, right? The organ forms the system, and this system or the different system, various system like respiratory system, central nervous system, is a building block of man, is comprised of whole man, and he is very much a part of holistic part of the approach. Now the whole man is nothing but is the start from the cell. The man, as we know, is made up of multiple system, right? The system are made up of the multiple organs, and the organs are made up of tissue, which in turn made up of number of cells. So ultimately the man is made up of cells. So that's why the cell is a unit of life, which is having almost all the properties of the man himself, as its function is governed by the genes. Now this cell, जो छोटा cell है, microscopic unit है, has having almost all the properties of the man himself. मतलब वो सेल में इतना पावर है कि एक पर्सन, whole human being is getting form. You can see the sperm and ovum is getting unite, one cell, two cell, four cell, and develop into the full human being. The one cell has the capacity to regenerate the whole organism, because that one cell has the carry the genetic material, the hereditary material. The genetic code which is inside the nucleus. Now if you see the modern scientist has, if you see the जो cases देखते होंगे CBI, CID वगैरह, so one hair of the victim or one hair of the murderer, बराबर है कि नहीं? The one hair, one nails, one tissue, one say one tissue part, when it is studied under the forensic team, they gives rise to a lot of information to the respective that police department ki this is the, iska age kya hai, iska height kya hai, ये मेल है कि फीमेल है, इसका बिहेवियर कैसे हो सकता है, इसको कोई डिसीज है नहीं है, क्या डिफेक्ट है. That means one cell gives, this is the blueprint of the whole organism. And this blueprint, that is the genetic material, is called as the genotype. This is called as the genotype, the genetic material, which has the capacity to produce the whole organism. Right? And what we see outside is the representation of the genetic code expressed outward, and this is called phenotype. Whatever we see outside is the representation of the genetic code, that is called phenotype. So there is a genotype inside the cell, that is the nucleus, and external expression, that is the phenotype. The genetically rule program, all the program in the body, that is metabolism, of differentiation and specialization concerning physical look, functioning, attitude of the person, find its root in the every cell. It is genetically bound, and their activity, all this activity, the metabolism, the functioning, all is governed by the genetic material or gene. Thus, the idea of individualization has the root in every cell. That means every cell has the power to individualize the thing. We can individualize the person by its changes in the cell, changes in the tissue, changes or the pathology that occurred in the system, tissue, organ. That's why it is very essential to study the cell, tissue, and organ. Even if you see or if you heard that Dr. Hegde is there, who is the Padma Bhushan, renowned cardiologist, who delivered the lecture for the betterment of human being, who mostly criticized the allopathic way of practicing. They given an example in one of the video, which I was heard long back. One of the patient who gone through the liver failure, and there was a liver transplant was done. The liver was transferred from the other person. Might be they died into the accident or whatever it may be. Now after the liver transplant, the person जिसमें ट्रांसप्लांट किया गया, his habits, His craving, aversion, his nature is getting change. उसका बिहेवियर चेंज हो गया, पसंद नापसंद चेंज हो गया। जैसे पहले उसको मीठा पसंद नहीं था, वो मीठा खाने लगा आफ्टर द ट्रांसप्लांट फ्रॉम समवन एल्स, द लिवर ट्रांसप्लांट। नाउ इट वाज क्लोजली स्टडी कि ऐसे क्यों हुआ। Then it comes to the conclusion that every cell has the potential to represent all these things. So the mind is not in the brain, the mind is in the every cell. The mind is in the every cell. Even if the tissue, even if the organ is getting from transplant from the other people, they have the potential to transfer the other features also, not only the organ. Right? So therefore, if we want to understand the man, his disease, mental or physical, one has to understand him at the cellular level and at the genetic level. When you understand the person at the genetic level or cellular level, then only you can able to understand the miasm, and then only you can able to treat the pathological or gross pathological cases. If we do it superficially, or if you collect the symptoms superficially, then you can able to treat the condition like a functional condition, not a structural condition or structural diseases. This is true. Or you can give only a superficial amelioration, not a full amelioration, not a complete cure. Right? Now the cell, everyone know the cell, the first year anatomy, physiology, everyone know the structure and function of the cell. The cell has, inside the cell there are a lot of structure which has the individual functioning and advances, है ना। एवरी इंडिविजुअल, जैसे माइटोकॉन्ड्रिया का एक अलग फंक्शन है कि उसमें एनर्जी स्टोर होती है, एटीपी बनता है, एनर्जी इन द फॉर्म ऑफ एटीपी। रेटिकुलम के अलग है, लाइसोसाइम का अलग ये है। न्यूक्लियस रहता है जिसमें जेनेटिक मटेरियल कैरी होता है इन द फॉर्म ऑफ डीएनए, डी ऑक्सीराइबोस न्यूक्लिक एसिड, which is the commander to the whole cell. That means the whole body. Nucleus is the commander, is the head of the whole cell, because वो कैरी करता है सब फंक्शनिंग। वो कमांड देता है कि कैसे करना है, कैसे ये करना है, कैसे कैरी करना है फंक्शनिंग। बराबर है कि नहीं। So the basic function of the cell arise from the need. सेल का फंक्शन क्या है? The functioning of the every individual or even ultimately the functioning of the cell is depends on the need. अभी नीड क्या है सेल का? अभी सेल मीन्स ह्यूमन बीइंग। Human being represent through the cell, tissue, organ system is to survive. Most important need of the cell or need of the human being is to survive. And for survive, he required the energy. बराबर, एनर्जी चाहिए ना। जिंदा रहना है तो एनर्जी तो चाहिए, तो एनर्जी कहां से मिलेंगी? That's the first to evolve were three principle or energy building principle called as the glycolysis, that is the process of glycolysis, process of respiration, and process of photosynthesis. These three principles get evolved because of the need for the energy. Now, whatever the food we have consumed or available to the cell in the form of protein, carbohydrates, and lipids, in the metabolism in the cell, they are broken down into the different form, and the nutrients get converted into the energy in the form of ATP into the storehouse of energy, किसको बोलते हैं? माइटोकॉन्ड्रिया. Now the ATP, which acts as an energy currency, is use this energy for normal activity of the cells. Means ultimately the activity of the person or organism. The most chemical reaction in the cell, whether it is a catabolic or anabolic, concerned with the energy production. Whatever the metabolism occurs in the cell is concerned with the energy production. That's why the first function of the cell or organism is to acquire the nutrition, and there is a survive, is to acquire the nutrition and oxygen for survival of the self, right? Is to acquire the nutrition and the oxygen for the survival of the self. That's why the first function of the cell or organism is to acquire the nutrition and oxygen for the survival of self. Now the function is to contribute the energy production, that is the oxygen, nutrition and excretion. For example, the respiratory system क्या करता है? They helps in obtaining the oxygen for oxidization and eliminate the waste product, that is the carbon dioxide. Digestive system क्या करता है? They helps in the digestion and assimilation of food molecules. Excretory system क्या करता है? जो it eliminate the waste product through the stool, urine and skin through perspiration. Now the metabolic activity help in the production of whatever the metabolism or metabolic activity carried out in the cell or in the body is helps to produce the energy, that is the ATP, right? Now the second basic function is of the living organism is, what is the second function? The law of bioenergetic state that every system has to degrade, thus every life has to end. मतलब whoever जो जिंदा है, जो every living being who born in the earth has to die. So the life becomes tug of war between two forces. That means one of the survival and other for the destruction. The life is between the born, survival and destruction. There is a law by Darwin's law क्या बोलता है? Survival of fittest. So in order to become survival, organism क्या करता है? Organism do each and everything to become fit in the nature. बराबर है कि नहीं? To fit in the nature, to survive in the nature. So the period of life is the limited. That is the eternal truth. The organism try his level best to improve his own quality of life by adaptation, but a time comes when he has to perish. मतलब खत्म होने वाला ही. So the living being decided not to let go whatever the things achieved in the lifetime. तो person क्या है? कैसा बंदा है? खुद को जाने देगा? Whatever the things which है achieve, learn, earn, कहाँ छोड़ेगा? So what they do, he produce the one of its own kind of organism. So if not me who is going to live long, my progeny will continue my work in the future and they take care of my all the things that I have earned. That of propagation, that is called production or regeneration. So at the genetic level, a gene was assigned the task of reproduction, the process by which it generally multiply. कैसे multiply होते हैं सेल, है ना? या जो प्रोजिनी है, जो फर्टिलाइजेशन होता है उसमें फिर मल्टीप्लिकेशन होता है बाय मियोसिस, बाय माइटोसिस एंड रिप्रोड्यूस द फुल ऑर्गेनिज्म, राइट? सो द सेकंड फंक्शन इज, second function है, second function of is the generation or reproduction which helps in the survival of species. Now first function is for the survival of self, खुद को जिंदा रखना, खुद का existence बचाना. Now the second function is the survival of species. जो मेरे progeny है, बाल बच्चे, उनको जिंदा रखना, right? Now the third function, what is the third function? What is the third function? The first function is for the survival of self, second function survival of species, but the अभी खुद भी बच रहा है, प्रोजिनी भी तैयार कर रहा है, रिप्रोडक्शन भी हो रहा है, पर again the important point is the function of survival and reproduction do not ensure the any safety. सेफ्टी कौन करेगा? खुद की, from the hostile forces in the world which are constantly trying to end the life. हमारे in this world there are the two forces. एक तो कंस्ट्रक्शन तो होता है पर डिस्ट्रक्शन भी होता है. There are a lot of inimical forces who trying to eliminate us, trying to invade in our body. So for that, what is the third function? For this, the living organism develop a system or the mechanism called as the immune system. See how the beautiful the body mechanism is. बॉडी का थर्ड फंक्शन क्या है? टू डेवलप द इम्यूनो सिस्टम. द मेन एम इज ऑफ द इम्यूनो सिस्टम इज टू प्रोटेक्ट द लाइफ एंड प्रिवेंट द डिस्ट्रक्शन. ये थर्ड फंक्शन क्या करता है? अपने लाइफ को सिस्टम को प्रोटेक्ट करता है एंड प्रिवेंट फ्रॉम द डिस्ट्रक्शन ऑफ सेल्फ. So the third function is to evolve to protect from both the individual and the species. So हम बोल सकते हैं कि there are the three functions of the cell, right? We can say one is the एक function है जिसमें to acquire the nutrition oxygen for the survival. This is the basic need of the person or basic need of the cell, and this survival required the energy. Second function is the generation or reproduction, that is for survival of species, and the third function is the immunity to protect the both the individual person self and the species community, right? यहां तक समझा है? It's a 4:15. We will end at the 4:30. Try to understand this because everything is important. बराबर है? हम सिर्फ अगर हम डायरेक्टली ये डिस्कस करेंगे कि ये डिसीज इसमें आता है, ये डिसीज, देन यू कांट गेट द फंडामेंटल्स और द बेस हाउ टू इवैल्यूएट द माइज्म. अगर ये बेस आपको समझ गया, सी देयर इज नो नीड टू आस्क एनीवन कि ये डिसीज कौन से माइज्म में आता है, ये कंडीशन कौन से माइज्म. यू कैन इवैल्यूएट ईच एंड एवरी डिसीज, ईच एंड एवरी पैथोलॉजी if you understand this base, right? So we see up till now the function of cell and what the body do. Now there is a material body which is made up of cells suffer from the various diseases. नॉर्मल फंक्शनिंग देखा हमने, अभी एबनॉर्मलिटी देखेंगे कि ये सेल किससे अटैक होता है. कि मटेरियल बॉडी is made up of cell, but this cell or tissue is organ is suffer from various diseases. What is that diseases? We are from tonsillitis, appendicitis, cholecystitis, heart disease, arthritis, diabetes, hypertension. Like, even though the many times the cause is not known, or at least were not known until the recent advances. In the past, कोई मर जाता था, हार्ट अटैक से भी मर जाता, but there was no invention of the ECG or like the other angiography like investigation which reveal that this person is die because of the heart attack or heart failure, or there might be a pancreatitis or shock or anything. But now with the recent advances in the molecular biology and genetics, we can able to understand the underlying pathology, right? So we have to take the advances of this, benefit of this, all these things, right? Because it makes the case or it makes the system or science scientific. If you practice by just symptoms understanding and prescribe the remedy, then it is an unscientific way of prescribing the or practicing the homeopathy. Might be your patient gets emulsion, your patient suffering with allergic rhinitis or any colicky pain or all these may get better. Might be patient having appendicitis and you don't know if what you are treating. The most important thing is you should know what you are treating. बराबर है. So even in the Robbins pathology क्या लिखा है वो देखिए. Robbins pathology में क्या लिखा है. Even in Robbins pathology state that most of the disease in the organ are caused by the dearrangement at the cellular level. मतलब क्या है कि डिसीज होने के लिए, कोई भी डिसीज होने के लिए सेलुलर लेवल पे डीअरेंजमेंट होना जरूरी है. मतलब सेल्स में डिस्टर्बेंसेस आना जरूरी है. इट इज नॉट कि डायरेक्टली द ऑर्गन इज गेट अफेक्टेड और सिस्टम इज गेट अफेक्टेड. Before that, because the organ is made up of tissue and tissue is made up of cell, the changes must be occur at the cellular level. That means the dearrangement must be occur at the cells level. Then only it surface on the tissue or it surface on the organ level. Second important thing that mentioned in the Robbins pathology is the dearrangement or disorder like inflammation. That is the pain, swelling, all these. Even the growth and destruction, etc., are due to the defense mechanism of the cells. What it means, इन्होंने see it is written the बहुत बढ़िया और बहुत बड़ी बात कही है, but the allopath itself not using this knowledge in the practice. The dearrangement of disorder like inflammation in the cell or tissue, like inflammation, growth, and destruction, are due to the defense mechanism of the cell. This is nothing but the defense reaction of the cell. It is not the outside. That means if the cell is inflaming, if the cell shows redness, cell tissue shows or organ shows inflammation, acute inflammation, chronic inflammation, they shows the growth, abnormal growth, they shows the destruction of cells. This is nothing but the body's reaction. It is nothing but the defense mechanism of the cell. It is not comes from outside. If the Robbins pathology, the advanced science said कि whatever the things that happens at the cellular level is nothing but the defense mechanism of the cell. And the same thing happens or written in the by the Hahnemann 200 years back. Right? So in the material body, the disease start in a cell. सेल से डिसीज स्टार्ट होता है ना. और डिसीज कैसे स्टार्ट होता है? द फिजिकल डिसीज, ऑर्गन डिसीज, यू कैन ट्रेस दिस ऑर्गन, द डिसीजेस you can trace to organ injury. Now the injury may be any form. Even the emotional trauma or shock may give, emotional shock may give the injury to the organ. Emotional. It is not only the mechanical injury or injury due to the chemical agents like that. All forms of organ injury start with the physiological, molecular or structural alteration in the cell. This is coined or defined by father of modern pathology called as Rudolf Virchow. क्या? What he said? Rudolf Virchow, all forms of organ injury starts with physiological, molecular or structural alteration in the cell. There could be a physiological changes at the cellular level. There could be a structural changes at the cellular level. So there are the two type of change: functional, physiological means functional, or there could be a morphological. Morphology means change in the structure. It is nothing different. That means this means whatever the disease a person comes with at physical level, one need to understand the changes that occurs in the cell of affected organ. मतलब कोई भी डिसीज हो, कोई भी पर्सन आपके पास आता है, we have to understand that person or that disease at the cell level or the what changes that occur at the level of cell. इतना बारीकी से हमको स्टडी करना है. Then only we can able to get the gist. अब ये मॉडर्न मेडिसिन क्या करते हैं, सेल को स्टडी करते हैं या सेल क्यों ऐसे बिहेव कर रहा है, क्यों अल्टरेशन आ रहा है, स्ट्रक्चरल चेंजेस क्यों हो रहे हैं, इसको इसको स्टडी करके मेडिसिन देते हैं कि व्हाट एवर द इफेक्ट दैट हैज प्रेजेंट बाय द पर्सन, उस पे मेडिसिन देते हैं। और कॉज ढूंढने की कोशिश करते हैं कि कॉज से जो इफेक्ट हुआ है सेल्स पे, ग्रोथ हुआ है या और कुछ चेंजेस आए हैं, दैट दे ट्राई टू एलिमिनेट. The modern medicine goes only as far as determine the changes at the systemic level or organ level or functional level. Like in case of gastritis, gastritis हुआ by any chance, कुछ अल्कोहल लिया है, कुछ स्पाइसी फूड खा लिया, कुछ किसी चीज से इंजुरी स्पाइसी फूड से या कुछ ले लिया और गैस्ट्राइटिस डेवलप हो गया. नाउ गैस्ट्राइटिस दैट इज द इन्फ्लेमेशन ऑफ स्टमक, जिसमें बर्निंग होता है, पेन इन एपिगैस्ट्रियम होता है, एसिड लेवल बढ़ जाता है, बर्निंग सेंसेशन होता है. नाउ दे प्रिस्क्राइब व्हाट दे प्रिस्क्राइब द एंटासिड एंड पेन किलर. व्हाट दे डू, व्हाट द एंटासिड डू, दे stop the acid secretion, they reduce the acid secretion so that the burning get reduced, they benumb the pain becomes removed because there is a nerve, जो पेन सेंसिटिव एरिया होता है या नर्व्स होती है उसको ऑब्स्ट्रक्ट करते हैं, बिनम कर देते हैं फॉर अ व्हाइल. But they does not go into the details of the cell of the gastrointestinal tract to know why they are so sensitive, why this cell is so sensitive, why the stomach is so sensitive that even a small amount of the acidic food causes the gastritis, why this person do not able to digest this particular type of food. Though there is an increased production of hydrochloric acid, why there is an increased production of hydrochloric acid, the allopath does not go into these details. They just see the person is suffered with the inflammation, that is the gastritis, give the antacid, give the painkiller. But the cause क्या है? The modern medicine teaches us to neutralize the effect. मतलब उसको effect को treat कर रहा है, but न्यूट्रलाइज द इफेक्ट व्हेन कॉज रिमेन्स कांस्टेंट, बट कॉज को ट्रीट कर रहे हैं क्या? नहीं. वेदर दे ट्राइंग टू ट्रीट द कॉज, दे ट्राइंग टू ट्रीट द इफेक्ट, दैट इज द एपीडी, दैट इज द एसिड फ्लो हो रहा है तो उसको स्टॉप कर दो. एसिड फ्लो कम हो जाएगा तो एसिडिटी चली जाएगी या गैस्ट्राइटिस कम हो जाएगा, पेन किलर दे देंगे तो पेन बंद हो जाएगा. Even the hypertension, they do the same. Antihypertensive, whether the antihypertensive normalize the whole phenomena, this is the effect. Hypertension is the effect. What will be the cause? Why the body behave like this? Why the blood pressure in the vessels is getting increase? What is the reason behind it? That they do never trying to find out. And this cause at the cellular level, at the glandular level, secretory level is definitely a genetically governed. Means whatever the cause is there is genetically governed. It's not the external force. Like that, if you see कि लोग गए सन एक्सपोजर हुआ, 4-5 लोग गए and then they fall ill. People are exposed to heavy rain and the ill. Not everyone is fall into the illness. Why? Because there is a genetically governed mechanism. If that person is sensitive to that genetically, then he or she will suffer. Right? Or another is the whatever the burning sensation that the patient present with is might not every time is because of just such a simple gastritis. Maybe there is an induration, maybe there is some destruction at cellular level which present with the burning and gastritis or pain. That way needs to understand at the when we need understood this, when we study the study at the cellular level, when we study the cell tissue, right? So, so it's a foolish to treat the patient with the healing science. If the homeopath consider himself as a holistic healer, he has no right to neglect the unit of the life, that is the cell, that is the tissue organ system, which is the building block of man and very much part of holistic approach. Might be you say कि अगर holistic approach लेना है, why we study the cell? Because the cell represent the whole organism. The changes that occurs in the cell represent the whole being. So when the patient comes to with particular pathology, we have to understand that, right? I think this is the enough for everyone. Now the now the further point comes कि defenses क्या है? How we our cell trying to defend to the external invading organism. In what way? हम अभी तक क्या देखे? Cellular pathology. How the cell try, how the cell react. The cell react in a inflammation way, in a growth, in a destruction way, and this reaction by the cell is nothing but the is governed by the cell, is governed genetically. That we have to understand. Is governed genetically. ये सब अंदर ही है, ये बाहर नहीं है. That genetic expression we have to understand, right? Later अभी इसमें जो defenses होते हैं, कैसे body defend करती है, in what way it is defense, that we have to understand through the organon and through the advanced pathology. This is the beginning of the, not end, this is the beginning of the understanding of miasm. It requires few sessions, not a single session is possible to make explain the all things.